Hi there guys, and welcome to another episode of the Cover Zero Show with me, your host, Simon Conboy. Just continuing on with the first wave of free agency reviews. This episode will be covering the Tennessee Titans, one of the pleasant surprises of last season for a number of people. Remember early in the year, everyone was sort of making a joke of the exotic smash mouth offense and the idea behind it. Well, it turns out it wasn't really a joke. Very, very powerful run game that they had. The trade for DeMarco Murray looking like an absolute bargain. Derrick Henry giving them another sledgehammer. The offensive line looking very, very good. I thought Mariota showed some promising signs of development. As a rookie, his deep ball was non-existent to terrible. Last year saw him really improve that side of his game, got a bit more production from the receivers around him. That certainly helped, and one of the top offensive lines in the league last season. They got really good tackle play. Taylor Decker, the right tackle, was absolutely fantastic for them, so that looked like a great pick. He ended up making the All-Pro team. So offensively pretty positive all round. Didn't make too many mistakes. Mariota was very, very safe like that. Still feels like there's room for improvement, but very promising signs offensively all round really for the Titans. Defensively, still some problems holding over from a few years ago when they were one of the worst teams in football. The defensive backfield has been a mess for a while now. They're not very good at corner. Not very good at safety. Teams pass all over them at will. They've got a good pass rush there. Arakpo and Derek Morgan are a good tandem, but the defensive backfield constantly letting them down. Run defense very inconsistent. They've still got one of the better D linemen in football in Jarrell Casey. Not a huge amount of talent on that D line outside of that, but generally not a bad front seven. But the backfield is a real issue. But all round, very promising season for the Titans. Almost managed to edge into the playoffs, beat some good teams, beat Kansas City, beat Denver toward the end of the year. So appear to be trending up after years of being a bottom feeding team. This rebuild looks like it's going well. GM John Robinson's done a great job there. Considering where they were when he got that job in the first place. So team needs for the Titans going into free agency this year. I've got defensive back, both safety and corner, as I said there. Both huge needs, no real high-end talent at all. Below average at just about every spot there. So that needs to be done. Inside linebacker, I feel like it's been a long time since there's been an impact backer in the middle of the field, someone who can help that backfield with some coverage ability, some athleticism, a real tackling machine. Since was it Sean Tulloch? He left years ago to go to Detroit. Haven't really had anybody of note in that spot since. I believe that could really take the defense up another notch. And a weapon, whether it's another tight end. Now Delaney Walker's been playing very, very well since he signed there. It's been a great pickup for them, but he's getting older. I think wide receiver, there's an okay group there. Of course, they lost Kendall Wright, never really worked out for them as a first round pick, but they got some production from other guys. Could really do with a number one, but I think another weapon is an absolute need for this team to grow with Mariota and give them a focal point in the passing attack. In terms of the signings made, Titans have been fairly active. Clearly it appears they agree with my assessment, and I think everyone else's, to be honest. It's not rocket science to figure out that was the issue with this team last year. Logan Ryan, 3-year, $30 million, $20 million guaranteed. A nice signing. Happy with the contract. He's not one of the top talents available in the corner class. He's not being paid like it, but he's a good tackler, versatile player, can play in the nickel, and that's more important than ever in today's NFL. He'll step right in, definitely have a starting spot in some description. I'd like to see him play in the same role that he played in New England in the nickel at times, but they'll need to get some more outside help before they can really consider doing that, I believe. John Cyprien, safety formerly of the Jags. This is one of the better moves, I think, of free agency. 4 years, $25 million. Not a huge contract. As I said in previous video, the Jags pretty much went like for like, replacing him with Barry Church. So, as I've said, and you'll often hear, taking the player from a division rival is normally great. In this case, not really done too much, just because the Jags signings kind of countered it somewhat. But he played very, very well last year. Hadn't really shown too much before that. It's a reasonable contract. If he can continue to play like he did last season, then it's going to look like an absolute bargain. Both of these moves attack that position of need. I still feel like there are needs there, but now they actually have some starting level NFL talent in that backfield. So, both to reasonable contracts. So very, very good moves. Great job there, Titans. And other move that they made, bringing back Kyle Klug, the undersized defensive lineman. He's fine, rotational guy. Not great in the run game, but he'll continue to play in pass rush situations. Gives them a little bit of work. Little bit of a threat there. That's a perfectly reasonable signing. Sylvester Williams has been brought in. He underachieved his time in Denver. High pick, never really came together. I think he fits better in a 4-3 personally. Whether he can help out in this scheme, I'm not so sure. But I haven't got contract info there. I assume it's a low cost deal, probably 2 or 3 years. If so, perfectly reasonable. They need more D linemen, the only one of note being Jarrell Casey, as mentioned. So cannot criticise them too much for that. Other than that, Eric Weems, Nate Palmer, nothing particularly of note. So yeah, it's one of the better ones. Groups of signings. I love the DB signings. Definitely going to help this team. Haven't lost too much. If anything, they've cleared out a couple of the first round sort of busts that have led them into the situation where they were poor for a number of years. Kendall Wright's gone. Never came together for him in Tennessee. Seemed to have issues with coaching staff there. We'll see if he gets it turned around. There's clearly talent there, but I don't necessarily blame the team for burning bridges there. Chance Warmack, top 10 pick, especially for a guard. Underperformed, was average in his time with the Titans. He's gone to the Eagles. Anthony Fasano's gone back to the Dolphins. That's not a big loss. And centre Brian Schwenke was pretty good for them. He's moved on as well, going to the Indianapolis Colts. We've got a good offensive line there. It will hurt depth, but I'm sure they'll be able to bring in somebody in that line. Still got a number of players still available formerly from this roster. Al Woods, who actually he signed with the Colts when I initially made this list. He was free. That's no longer the case. Mariani, special teams player. That's no big deal. Didn't really have any particularly big names there. Rashad Johnson was a good player at one point for the Cardinals. I think he's a rotational player, a backup at this point in his career. He struggled for them. So yeah, number of other guys, but nothing majorly of note. So I think the Titans are a good example to rebuilding teams. A big jump, of course, from having the number one pick to going 9-7, one game away from the playoffs. But I think they've set a good example to what you need to do when you're rebuilding, and that is attack individual positions and just say, okay, we can't fix this team in one off season, but what we can do is turn one of those weaknesses into a strength. We saw that with the way they've built the offensive line. I mean, whilst Chance Warmack did not work out, high picks on Taylor Lewan, on Decker there, they're both Pro Bowl talents at this point. The interior of the offensive line, they've invested a lot of picks in the offensive line. That's a real strength now. Getting a Rakpo from the Redskins, that was a solid signing. Derek Morgan was a first-round pick. He's worked out for them. That's a good pair. Jarrell Casey was a third-round pick. He's been exceptional. Great value at that spot for sure. They've built around those 3 players with the front 7. That's why there's holes at other spots. If they can fill those needs, I think it's a lot easier to totally revamp one spot rather than sort of putting in several different pieces. It's been a focused build, and I think it's a real blueprint that other teams should look to follow. Also, last year you could see them attack the running back spot as well, and having developed the offensive line, having got Marcus Mariota, that really made sense. It really helped them. I expect the perimeter, DBs, wide receiver to be the positions that this team attacks in the draft. With the 5th pick, I'm expecting them to maybe try and trade down. I'm not sure anyone will be looking to necessarily trade up unless something crazy happens with the quarterbacks, which I'm not sure this draft it's going to. It seems to happen every year. This year though, there's quite a lot of them, and there doesn't seem to be a huge amount between them in a lot of people's eyes, so I'm not sure they'll necessarily be able to do so. I would expect to see one of the 2 safeties, Jamal Adams or Malik Hooker, taken, or one of the corners. I'll be releasing a mock draft fairly soon. I just want to watch a bit more tape on some of these guys, so I feel like I've got a more my opinion rather than sort of just a mishmash of some players that I've seen and other mock drafts that are on the internet. And I can see the 2nd pick being a receiver if the 2 top prospects in Williams or Davis are there when they make their 2nd pick. I'm not sure if they will, but that will give them, they'll have options there, I'm sure. I mean, this team, they could be the favourites next off season. To be in a good spot next off season from the AFC South. Is still a very strange kind of division looking at. You look at the Colts, they got top quarterback and not much else. The Jags have been aggressive again. The Texans have a really good roster, but a gaping hole at the quarterback spot. The Titans could very much be primed to return to the playoffs next year. Even if they don't win the division, they could be one of the wild card teams. You continue to see some progress from Mariota. It's still a very young team. They've got a bevy of picks due to the trade last year. That set them up really, really well. I mean, as much credit as I've given them, that was a bit of luck, really. To be bad enough to obtain the first pick isn't, but in the inherited situation it was bad. Managed to get those 2 high picks. Were lucky enough to have a draft where there was a quarterback worthy of being taken. Then last year managed to get all the picks, and it gives this team a lot of flexibility. They could be very, very good. They've taken on that model that I've described in previous videos of building up the O-line. I think a lot more teams are going to look to do that. You can see the Browns have looked to do that. Get the line in place, then you can make the other guys around it look a lot, around them on offense look a lot better. So I'm feeling pretty positive about the Titans. I know one of my friends who's a Titans fan, he's feeling very positive about them for the first time in years. I'd imagine most of the fan base is too going into next season. What do you guys think? Do you think last year was a mirage? Do you think that this is the one thing I'd be interested in seeing if teams catch up to what they were doing schematically? We do see this happen quite often, where a team comes out, has tremendous success with a scheme, and then teams have an off season to adjust, and it's simply less effective. Do you think that might be the case with their run game next year? What do you think the Titans need to do? And do you believe that the rebuild has been as well executed as I believe it has been? Do you think Marcus Mariota is a franchise quarterback for the future? Even though I hate that term, let me know. I'll do my best to get back to everyone, whether it's via Twitter, the Facebook page, the comment section below. Any suggested future shows, I'll consider them. I'll do my best to get those out there for you. It's been a pleasure as always. Check out the Patreon, Facebook, the Twitter, all that other stuff. Like, share, subscribe, and yeah, check out some more videos if you enjoyed this one. It's been a pleasure as always. Thank you for your time, and go Bucks.